Now you're probably wondering who all of these people here are at the head table, so let me take a moment to just introduce them. We're honored to be joined by the Most Reverend William Medley of the Diocese of Owensboro, Kentucky. Thank you, Bishop Medley, for ministering to us in word and sacrament at the reunion mass this evening. We also have here to my right, my very own Bishop Robert Donnelly, the retired auxiliary bishop from Toledo, and glad to have you here with us this evening. We're also blessed to have Archbishop Justin Duvall. Thank you, Father Abbot, for your vision. Thank you for your leadership, and mostly thank you for your hospitality here. We look forward to hearing from you a little bit later. And to my far right and your left, Abbot John Brahill, the 5th Abbot of Marmion Abbey in Aurora, Illinois. Abbot John is here to accept the Distinguished Alumnus Award on behalf of Abbot Gerald Benkert, who's unable to join us because of his health, and I'll tell you more about that later, and you'll understand why. On my far left over here is my good friend Archbishop Bonaventure Knabel, former Archabbot of St. Meinrad. Thank you for joining us. And once again, Father Dennis Robinson, the 14th President, Rector of St. Meinrad Seminary and School of Theology. Thank you for your presence throughout the reunion. You know, for 83 years now, the alumni of St. Meinrad have gathered to celebrate their affiliation and deep love for this holy hill. Since 1990, the St. Meinrad Alumni Association has been conferring the Distinguished Alumnus Award to an alumnus or alumna who has, among other things, provided, quote, exemplary service in his or her life and or profession that reflects the core values of St. Meinrad. So I'm pleased to recognize a past recipient of the Distinguished Alumni Award presented here this evening. Father Charles Doyle of the Diocese of Gary was honored with the award in 2008. And Father Doyle, where are you? Thank you. And I know for a fact there are other recipients here. Father Ron Knott, I recognize over here. And there might be some others attending here that I'm not quite sure of. Anyone else who's a recipient of this award? Well, two's quite enough here then. Thank you. We're glad to have all of you with us here. Well, tonight we honor the 19th recipient of this award, Benedictine Abbot Gerald Benkert, the founding abbot of Marmion Abbey. When you talk with Abbot Gerald or read the memoirs book he wrote in 2009, a memoir of his and Marmion Abbey's story, it's the numbers that you remember. Let me tell you a little bit about those numbers. Abbot Gerald is 101 years old. In 1947, that was the year I was born, at the age of 37, he was named the first abbot of a new abbey in Aurora, Illinois, founded by St. Meinrad Archabbey. At the time, he had been the rector of St. Meinrad Minor Seminary for 3 years. He served as Marmion's abbot for 22 years. Then, upon his retirement, and I say that in quote, in 1969, that was the year I graduated from college here, he decided to learn Spanish and joined his confreres in Guatemala, who were serving at Marmion's Priory and teaching at its minor seminary. He spent more than 30 years doing mission work in Guatemala. During some turbulent times, including the devastating earthquake in 1976 that killed more than 30,000 people, and several years of guerrilla violence during the 1980s. For the 2 months each year that the seminary was not in session, he would return to Marmion and raise funds for the Guatemalan mission. Since his permanent return to Marmion Abbey, Abbot Gerald has continued to take part in the prayer life of the monastic community. Although, as I hear from Abbot John, occasionally he asks for permission to skip Vespers and to do that alone in his room. Well, in addition, he's written a book of memoirs about his life and the history of Marmion, which was founded in 1933. Their history is clearly intertwined. But let's back up just a little further. Francis Benkert, often called Franz by his family, was born in 1909 in Louisville, Kentucky, or as Ron Knott says, Louisville. Already at that time, several men in the Benkert family were members of the St. Meinrad monastic community, including his father's uncle, Abbot Athanasius Schmidt, and two brothers, Brother Innocent and Father Boniface, and a cousin, Father Fidelis. So it's certainly not inconceivable that Franz would go to the seminary at St. Meinrad. He, in fact, did enter the seminary here after his 8th grade graduation from Holy Name School in Louisville. He arrived on September 11th, 1923. About his first day, he wrote, quote, "With the other new students, I was then assigned a bed in a large dormitory, a desk in the front row of the huge study hall, one of the front pews in the chapel, and a place at table in the dining room." That may sound familiar to some of you here, I'm sure. During his 3rd and 4th years of seminary, he debated whether to join the monastic community, as he originally intended, or become a diocesan priest in Louisville. The main attraction of studying for the Diocese of Louisville was that he'd probably get to study at the North American College in Rome. Quite a dream for a 16-year-old Kentucky boy in 1926. Well, eventually, however, he discerned that it was God's will that he should enter the monastery, which he did along with 5 others on August 5th, 1928. A year later, he made his first vows and took the name Gerald. Well, on November 30th, 1932, he became a fully professed member of the St. Meinrad community, and he was ordained a priest on May 22nd, 1934. The summer after ordination, St. Meinrad's Abbot Ignatius Esser sent young Father Gerald for graduate studies at DePaul University in Chicago, where he stayed at the nearby Marmion Priory, his first visit to the place that would eventually become home to him. He then returned to St. Meinrad to begin teaching Latin in the minor seminary. In 1936, Abbot Ignatius sent Father Gerald to Catholic University to begin a program of graduate studies in philosophy. After learning a master's degree, his studies were interrupted when Abbot Ignatius appointed him as headmaster of Marmion Military Academy for 2 years. The appointment came as a surprise to the young priest, but it was nothing compared to his unexpected appointment as abbot a few years later. By the way, Father Gerald later returned to Catholic University to complete his doctorate in philosophy. In 1942, he returned here to St. Meinrad to teach philosophy and in the major seminary. While continuing to teach, he was appointed rector of the minor seminary, a post he held for 3 years from 1944 to 1947. During the Easter break at St. Meinrad Minor Seminary in 1947, Father Gerald traveled to Boston for a meeting of the American Catholic Education Association. Well, while he was away, Abbot Ignatius received word from Rome of the establishment of Marmion as an independent abbey and approval of his request that Father Gerald be named the first abbot. At that time, the nation's telephone operators had gone on strike. So, Abbot Ignatius sent word of the appointment to Father Gerald by telegram. But due to a mix-up at the hotel, he didn't receive the telegram until a day after it had been delivered. In the meantime, the hotel clerk handed it to him. 6 other telegrams had arrived, all congratulating him on his new appointment. During the more than 2 decades that Abbot Gerald was the Marmion superior, he provided both the spiritual and physical foundations of the new community they needed to thrive. A few of his many accomplishments are these. The Abbey purchased more than 200 acres on which to build a monastery and other buildings. Marmion Military Academy relocated to the property, and a new school complex was built consisting of a classroom building, dormitory, gymnasium, dining hall, and power plant. A Christmas tree farm was planted, which opened to the public in 1966 and provided a source of income for the Abbey. The monastic community, which comprised 32 members when the Abbey was established, grew to 75 monks by 1965. Enrollment at Marmion's 2 campuses, one a residential campus and the other a day school, peaked at 884 students in 1964. Now, responding to Pope John XXIII's call for religious communities to serve Latin America, Marmion agreed to establish a priory and operate a minor seminary in Guatemala, the Colegio Seminario de San Jose. Another of Abbot Gerald's achievements was noted in his nomination for the Distinguished Alumnus Award. And let me share a few of those with you. According to one nominator, Abbot Gerald was zealous to promote the beatification of Abbot Dom Columba Marmion by appointing Father Alcuin Deck, also a Marmion monk, as the postulator for the United States. Columba Marmion, for whom Marmion Abbey was named, was the 3rd abbot of Maritsu Abbey and a well-known spiritual writer. When he was beatified by Pope John Paul II in front of St. Peter's Basilica on September 3rd, 2000, Abbot Gerald was privileged to join his confreres and friends to witness the historic event. In Abbot Gerald's memoirs, he sums up his life experiences by quoting a verse from an antiphon that is sung during Vespers every Saturday evening. The will of God gives joy to the heart. We see all things in its light. He goes on to write, looking back over my many years, I can say that the great truths in this antiphon have served as guiding principles through the various stages of my life, monastic, priestly, and abbatial, even though I may not have been fully aware of it at the time. For his service to St. Meinrad and the Church, through his leadership, his dedication to the education of priests here at St. Meinrad, at Marmion Abbey, and finally at the College Seminary in Guatemala, and as a witness to the monastic life of prayer and work for more than 80 years, we are proud and we are grateful to honor Abbot Gerald Benkert as one of our most distinguished alumni. Now, due to his health, Abbot Gerald could not attend tonight's ceremony, but Marmion Abbey's current subprior and Abbot John Brahill, now Abbot, is here this evening to accept the award on Abbot Gerald's behalf. Abbot John.
Good evening. You have to imagine Abbot Gerald standing here before you, not me. Carney mentioned a lot of different things about Abbot Gerald. I would like to add one more thing. Almost 2 years ago now, we celebrated his 100th birthday at Marmion Abbey, and there was a group of friends and family, and the community, of course, were there. And the speaker went through Abbot Gerald's whole life, as we just did this evening. And then he asked Abbot Gerald, what is your secret to a long life and to being so happy and joyful and to being a holy monk? And he thought a moment and he said, I want you all to listen very carefully. My secret is Kentucky bourbon. Spoken like a true son of Kentucky. In any case, when Abbot Gerald asked me to come to represent him because of his declining health and the fact that he just was not up to making this trip, he did write out some words of appreciation that he asked me to share with all of you. He says the following: Dear Archabbot Justin, and to all the directors and members of the St. Meinrad Alumni Association, I am truly honored this evening by this recognition as a distinguished alumnus of St. Meinrad Seminary. I heartily accept the honor with humble gratitude to God for his abundant gifts and graces to achieve the work which, in his divine providence, he has chosen me to do. I accept this honor in a spirit of gratitude and sincere appreciation to the monks of St. Meinrad Archabbey and Seminary who taught me and formed me and prepared me for what I was able to accomplish in accord with St. Benedict's principle that in all things God may be glorified. While I deeply regret that I am unable to be at St. Meinrad to accept this high honor, I am grateful to Abbot John Brahill for his kindness in accepting this award as Distinguished Alumnus for me. In my name and in the name of my confreres at Marmion Abbey, it was only with their cooperation that the work for which I am being honored could have been achieved at Marmion Abbey and at our mission priory of San Jose in Guatemala. May God continue to bestow his abundant gifts and graces on St. Meinrad and on all its alumni for the spiritual benefit of our brothers and sisters in Christ. Sincerely, Abbot Gerald Benkert of the Order of St. Benedict.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Give him our best. Well, it's been a great evening, and I think it calls for a great conclusion. So I ask Archabbot Justin, our ninth abbot and sixth archabbot of St. Meinrad, and a member of our illustrious Alumni Association, can you honor us with some of your comments, please?
You know, the historical memory of any institution only grows for as long as that institution continues to exist. The living memory, however, slides a bit from generation to generation and is only as old as the oldest member and as new as the youngest member. I want to say just a little story about Abbot Gerald that for many in this room will be a part of the historical memory of St. Meinrad, but for many others it will be part of the living memory of St. Meinrad because it has some characters in it that are known to you. And this was told to me by Abbot Gerald himself. I just related this to Abbot John and to Carney. About the time that Marmion was raised to the status of an abbey, and at that time it was the custom that the abbot of the founding monastery could name the abbot of the newly established abbey. The rumors were hot that Father Gerald was going to be named the abbot. But at that time, one day, Father Adelbert Buscher got Father Gerald and said to him, "Father, it is not you." And when